Yeah. All right, so this is from out of UTEP El Paso, Edward Morguia and Kim Diaz, The Philosophical Foundations of Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, Stoicism, Buddhism, Taoism, and Existentialism in the Journal of Evidence-Based Psychotherapies. And this is back from 2015, which is a lot of words. But yeah, this is kind of cool. So yeah, sociology and philosophy. So, as always, feel free to ask me questions along the way. I try to explain it the best I can, and this is my first time reading it too, so here we go. Everything good? Everything's good. In this study, we examine the philosophical basis of one of the leading clinical psychological methods of therapy for anxiety, anger, and depression, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Yeah, it kind of covers life, the universe, and everything. Yeah. So, although the broad philosophical bases of CBT include the philosophies of Heraclitus bot, here we go, pigs rejoice in mud more than pure water, Stoicism, Epicureanism, hedonism, Buddhism, Taoism, existentialism, yogic philosophy, Baruch Spinoza, and Immanuel Kant, our intent is to trace this method back to its philosophical roots in the Stoic, Buddhist, Taoist, and existentialist philosophical traditions. We focus on these four schools of thought, given that Ellis references Epictetus as the primary influence for his development of CBT. Taoism and Buddhism both are helpful to explain the process metaphysics that underlies the problem with categorizations that often lead us to become emotionally disturbed. Okay, so there are, as you know, Unreal Brian says, this has mentioned so many different philosophies and like concepts in a very short time. I don't know what the hell is going to happen. But like, again, emotionally disturbed. Like the idea that like there's emotions and that it can get disturbed, again, presupposes a whole bunch of philosophy too. I wish they didn't use that initialization. Why? CBT's no good? Okay. I mean, that is the standard. I've heard CBT a lot over there, like whenever it's getting mentioned. Do you have like a reason, or you just, yeah, thank you, Luke. Existentialism emphasizes choice and responsibility as possibilities for living an authentic life. Okay, so yeah, so then they just make some random claim about existentialism. Cool. Yeah, I mean, like like my mom was a therapist, social worker, and my dad used to work in he was a mental hospital administrator. So like I have just like a DSM book lying around because like I've dealt with this. So CBT, I've heard like the term get thrown around a lot. Like a lot of people use it. Yeah. It comes dangerously close to name dropping. Yeah. Insurers love CBT because it's intended to be short in duration. Well, there you go. You only got it the ICD-11, yeah. Okay. Okay. We begin by discussing the tenets of CBT, and then we expand on the philosophical traditions that ground this approach. Given that CBT has had a clinically measured positive effect on the psychological well-being of individuals, it becomes important to study the philosophical foundations on which this therapy is based. So CBT is just do the thing you don't want to do. Okay. I mean, I've never done it, so I don't know. I've never had experience with it. I've heard it mentioned a lot. And CPT code is for procedure tenders. Okay. Yeah. Okay. CBT. Extensive research supports CBT as an effective non-pharmaceutical treatment for mood disorders, and we focus on the works of key scholars in the field, Albert Ellis, David Burns. Ellis, an originator of what has come to be known as CBT, ultimately named his particular approach Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, REBD. He proposed an ABC model of CBT, cognitive behavioral disturbance, marked by dysfunctional moods that diminish life satisfaction and happiness. So we've got dysfunctional moods here. I don't know what that means, and then you're unhappy about it. In his theoretical model, the letter A stands for an activating event, B refers to a belief system, and C stands for consequences of A through B. Although activating events cannot be changed, a change in the perception of A causes a change of B, and this in turn results in a change in consequences that is of C. Yeah, so Yeah, the consequence. Yeah, when you an activating event, you have to change the way you like sort of think about it, and then the outcome is different. We should invent Chat CBT. Oh, I can guarantee you, they are working real hard on making therapy bots. I can guarantee you. I 100% believe that the insurance companies would love not to pay therapists, love not to pay social workers. Just be like, oh no, chat with our chatbot and you'll be better. 100% like they're working on this. So. Viper says from Wiki, CBT focuses on challenging and changing cognitive distortions, such as new beliefs and attitudes, and their associated behaviors to improve emotional regulation and develop personal coping strategies that target solving current problems. Though it was originally designed to treat depression, its uses have been expanded to include many issues and the treatment of many health conditions. Yeah. Now, there are, like, I get this. Now, it should be, like, disclaimed a little bit that, you know, doctors, including therapists and like psychologists, they all have their own idea about how people are, what's wrong. So, you know, if you go to someone who prescribes medicine, they're going to give you a medicine. If you go to someone who does like talk therapy, they're going to do talk therapy. And so, are any of these like, does anyone like right or wrong? Well, I'm sure we do it because it works, you know? Like if it didn't work, of course some things are bullshit, but like some stuff works and it helps some people, and so it's like that's why we do it. Now, is it like, do we have everything solved? Of course not. So you want to be like, look, what work? You have to go find something that works for you. Is this going to work for everybody? No, but that also means that the philosophy is not going to make sense for everybody also. And the question here is, well, what is the philosophy? Maybe we could figure out what is underlying a lot of this stuff. Ivan says CBT is the only kind of therapy that shows consistent results above placebo, if Ivan recalls correctly. Yeah, this is what I mean. It does work. I know that CBT has benefit. Now, of course, pills like chemicals do stuff too. So it's like we also have brain drugs, and then we have like CBT talk therapy. Question is there any universal panacea? Of course not. When all you have is a hammer. Yeah, that's my point. You got it. Viper says CBT is a common form of talk therapy. CBT is problem-focused and action-oriented form of therapy, meaning that it is used to treat specific problems related to a diagnosed mental disorder. The therapist's role is to assist the client in finding and practicing effective strategies to address the identified goals and alleviate symptoms of the disorder. Okay. It's like, yeah. What else is, I think Replica was at first advertised as a kind of therapy stand-in. What's Replica? I don't know that. Is that like is that a chatbot? Replica chatbot? Yeah. Luke says that's not technically accurate. Most of therapy approaches for most things, the more specific concerns, the more specific the approach you might need. Yeah. Therapy works for most approaches. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to like start pulling up references at this point. I'm just going to go with like, you know, some of this stuff works, and nothing works universally. We know this. But, you know, some of it works some of the time, and if you get a competent, you know, doctor or whatever else, you can get something that hopefully will work for you. Frank says, I expect it works to some degree and not arguing otherwise, but measuring is always going to be weird because a directive like pretend you aren't depressed can measure as success even where there isn't. Yeah, of course. A lot of this stuff is self-reported. There's difficulties here. Cinesemiac says, also worth remembering that nowhere in the statistic is any consideration given to unique individual circumstances. That's one of the real hard problems. I completely agree, Cinesemiac. Unreal says, Replica later became notorious as the AI girlfriend, sex friend. Oh yeah, that's what it was. It was the chatbot that became like, you know, your girlfriend. And then even more when they canceled that part of the service. Yeah. And I wonder, Unreal, like, did having the like Replica AI girlfriend, sex friend, whatever, did that make those people happier? I mean, was it actually good therapy? And that depressed people when it was taken away? So, you know, I mean, maybe that's actually, you know, what people wanted, and then it gave it to them, but then people got creeped out because it's like, well, you have a AI girlfriend. That's not what they wanted to do, but they may have solved the problem, just not in the way they expected. So, yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, well, maybe you just wanted a girlfriend. And that would have solved your problem. So, when it became an AI girlfriend, it became a problem, yeah. Unreal says, seems like yes. I watched a bunch of vids about the Replica story. It kind of fascinated you. Interesting, yeah. That's interesting stuff. What was there, a doll of any kind? Oh, dear. Are we getting back into this, like, sex robots again? Nice. Viper says, oh, the history section of the wiki article reads exactly like the summary paragraph of the paper. Interesting. Okay. So I wonder if they just sort of lifted that. Yeah. I wouldn't be, like, shocked. You know? Let's take a look real fast. Paste and go. Where's the history? Oh, yeah, look at this. Yeah. Like, blah, blah, blah. Exactly this shit. Stoic philosophers, Epictetus. But again, who'd they get it from? Like, for all we know, this is where this paragraph came from. It may have been lifted from, like, reference 34 and 35, which may be the same things that are referenced in this paper. I don't know. So it's like, yeah. Like this right here. It's like, whatever this is. This is, like, you know, cognitive therapy of depression from, like, 1979. I don't know if you can see the year, but, like, if it's a paper from 1979, maybe that's sort of the standard text that everyone uses to discuss this stuff. Yeah, that sounds like when papers are mostly in the abstract section. Yeah. I mean, it's not a big deal because it's like, you know, 1 or 2 paragraphs of history and it's not a substantive thing. Like, there's no problem there. Okay. Although activating events cannot be changed. All right. Luke says, I wonder if roots not a causal origin of ideas from CBT creators, and roots means more just like similarities. Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly. Like, I don't want to push too hard on the words in, like, this little area. They're just doing background, and it's like, you know, whatever works at this point. So it's like, this is not like a consequential stuff yet. All right. Although activating events cannot be changed, a change in the perception of A causes a change in B, and this in turn results in a change of consequences that is of C. The moods of individuals the C's in the ABC model can be transformed from dysfunctional affects, such as depression, to functional ones, such as moderate sadness, through a change in how activating events are perceived. A schema of Alice's ABC theory of cognitive disturbance is as follows. Okay, so we've got A arrow B1, then arrow C2. Excuse me. Getting my Indian foods coming back up. And then we've got A to B2, then to C2. So we've got consequence 1 and consequence 2 because we've got 2 different ways that the beliefs about the activating event was structured. And so once you believe different things, then the consequences came out differently and hopefully better for your overall well-being, whatever that happens to be. Okay, individual beliefs concerning the event they experienced, the B in the model, so there I'll leave it on the screen, can be considered in their philosophical approach to life conditions. What the fuck is a life conditions? Ellis attributed his ABC model primarily to Stoic philosophy and to the Stoics Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius in particular, although as we indicate in the study, there are other philosophical schools of thought that influence CBT as well. Viper says, it's not a sex joke, it's just 2 friends enjoying donuts. Yeah. Dinner is recurring. Oh, god damn it, people. According to Epictetus, it is not what happens to individuals, but rather how individuals perceive what happens to them, and that determines their effect. Epictetus states, men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by their opinions about the things. You know, there's some truth to this. The Stoics aren't all wrong. But yeah. You know, it's interesting. I don't normally remember my dreams. When I do remember my dreams, it's usually because I'm like half awake. Like, I kind of know I'm dreaming. I'm kind of half awake. I remembered, during the morning, I remembered what I dreamed last night. But, like, I don't normally remember. And, like, today I know, like, someone was trying to kill me in my dream last night. One of the funny things about me was, like, I don't really care if someone's trying to kill me as long as they're not successful. And so it was, like, a mild annoyance. Like, I don't really have, nightmares. I just have like mild and like I have irritating dreams. Like, it's irritating that someone was trying to kill me in my dream last night, and I was just like, oh, this is so irritating. Like, the guy is still trying to have me dead, and it was like, okay, it's just irritating. So it's like this sort of men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by their opinions about the things. It's like, yeah, I was, miffed in my dream last night. Currienterology, dear lord, you should just stop. Very bad chat. Bad. Let's go normatively correct your behavior. Terrible puns and like other things. But yeah. Okay. Ellis summarized his findings by stating that there are three fundamental sources of cognitive disturbance, which he labeled IBs, or irrational beliefs, beliefs that caused individuals to react in dysfunctional ways to events in their lives. These three are: 1. I must be successful. 2. Others must treat me well. And 3. Conditions under which I live must be agreeable to me. The musts are emphasized here because Ellis believed that simple concern does not lead to dysfunctionality among individuals. A must belief, on the other hand, does lead to psychological disturbance. And if you guys know the logic behind this, musts are sort of like treated sort of like conditions on your world. So it's a very strong restriction on the way the world must be. Means there are things that the way the world has to be structured, and like anything that falls outside of that is not in the world. It's not in that possible world. Masturbating. Well, you're fitting right in, Luke. Congratulations. It follows then that, according to Ellis, one of the main, if not the main, cause of human misery is grandiosity, that is taking ourselves too seriously. Well, this is unfair. I mean, I wouldn't go this way. This is not how I would interpret musts. People think they must have, certain things in their life, and these things don't have to be that crazy. You're not being grandiose to think you must be able to eat and have a roof over your head. Like, you can get in a lot of political trouble saying you must have health insurance nowadays. It's like, okay, but that's not being grandiose. Actual term? Oh, okay, didn't know it. All right, we can see that individuals have grandiose tendencies when they believe themselves to be the center of the universe. Hi, right here. No, like I said before, center of the universe is right in between us. When they believe that they must be successful in all activities, and when they believe that others must be accommodating to them. Yeah, this is like narcissism 101 here. Conditions around them they believe also must be to their satisfaction. It follows that the ultimate grandiosity for individuals then is the belief, stated or unstated, that everything is about them, and they are the only ones who matter, and everything that they do and everything that happens to them must go their way. We realize, of course, that this cannot be the case. Often our activities are not successful, others do not treat us well, and the conditions under which we live are not agreeable. Where is between us? Yes, Vipers, exactly. Unreal says, I am often made aware I am not the center of the universe, I have cats. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you might have been here for the story, but like that's just Voltaire said. Like when you're having a discussion, it's the space in between you. Of course, Voltaire didn't know about the internet, so there was always like a physical space in between Voltaire and the person he was talking to, but like that was the idea. It's like wherever it is, it's just in between us for some question of us, or wherever we are in the donut. It's the donut hole, Vipers. That's where it is. Okay. The way to combat grandiosity, according to Ellis, is to change the must in the three fundamental irrational beliefs to I would prefer. Once the three statements are changed by substituting preference for absolute must, life becomes significantly more tolerable when things do not go our way, as sometimes they do not. It is evident that changing I must be successful to I would prefer to be successful will dissipate extreme disappointment or anger should one fail to succeed. I don't know about this. When you say like it is evident that changing I must be to like I would prefer to be, I mean, that's a semantic shift, but like, have you changed, like you have to change the person. Just changing out a word is not going to change how they view the world. You prefer not to, sharp? You prefer not to pound? You prefer not to hashtag? There's a few things that could be interpreted by that, Tindarios. But yeah, so you're really trying to change the person. Like, you have to change the way they outlook on the world, not just the words they're using. You changing the word someone uses is going to be part of this. You can definitely train yourself to look at the world differently. That's kind of what we've been talking about all stream. But how does that happen is, well, I was talking about the hashtag, the sharp was a typo? Yeah. Okay. He prefers not to hashtag. Aha. Yes. Concerning how one is treated by others, yeah, it's all a typo. Luke says, charitable interpretation. The idea is that thought words can have physical impacts on us. Imagine great detailed cheesecake, you might salivate. Yes, I'm not saying they don't, and I agree with this. Changing the way you describe things or thinking of things in detail definitely can do this. And there's, like visualizations, like say visualize certain things, and that will help you like deal with them. Not everyone can visualize, of course. There's like aphantasia. I've been finding out some of the people I watch on Twitch have aphantasia. Like I think our buddy Tommy, he was saying that last time I was lurking the stream. He said he had aphantasia. Basically, it means you don't have you can't get strong visuals in your head. I don't think I have aphantasia. I can definitely have visuals in my head. I just think that they're kind of weak. I know people like the Daniel Matt, who I was talking about earlier. He's a writer. He has extreme hyperphantasia or whatever, where he imagines whole stories because he's a writer. He comes up with whole universes in his head. Everything's a typo. Luke says your point's taken, though it is evident is a bit too strong without further justification. Yeah, what do you mean by evident then? That was the point. But it's a complicated thing because they're not wrong. It's just it's overstated. That's all. Okay, concerning how one is treated by others, if one makes being treated well by others a preference rather than a rigid demand, then should mistreatment occur, the mistreated individual would not necessarily spiral into depression, anxiety, or anger. Now, and also, they're describing Ellis's theory of this, so this may be accurate to the way that Ellis saw the world. So yeah. Finally, concerning the third irrational belief, that is, of insisting that the conditions under which one lives must be agreeable, if one were to change this belief to I would prefer that the conditions under which I live to be agreeable, but if they're not, I will still be alright, this change would neutralize potential anxiety, anger, or depression. We notice that with Ellis's three statements, I must be successful, others must treat me well, and conditions under which I live must be agreeable, he covers the perceived well-being of individuals from the point of view of self, others, and the circumstances surrounding one's life. The coverage then is complete. And you will hear this when I say it, and also I think my buddy Aristotle also makes this point, because we are anti-Stoic nowadays. Stoics can go fuck themselves. This is way too just put up and deal with the bullshit in the world. This is way too simplistic. Sometimes you should be very angry. Something should make you fucking livid in this world. And to say, you shouldn't be feeling like this, I think that's wrong. You should be very angry about some things that happen in your life or in the world because they suck. And so it's I disagree with this philosophy. And the idea that you want to take dysfunctional emotional states, as they say in this, and deal with them better. That's good. But the general Stoic perspective of, all things should not affect you, that's wrong. So, okay. David Burns, a student of Aaron Beck, also considered a founder of CBT, is a second cognitive behavioral therapist whose work is studied here. Burns' book, Feeling Good, The New Mood Therapy, and this is from 1980, is among the most read books in CBT, having sold over 4 million copies in the United States since first being published. There is significant agreement between Ellis and Burns in their approach to mental disturbance, both relying on the bedrock of Stoic philosophy. Both refer back to the basic Stoic concept that it is not what happens to individuals, but rather how they view what happens to them that determines their emotional reaction to events. Of interest here, though, is the difference between Burns and Ellis's views of the causes of cognitive disturbance. Unreal says, Ryan Holiday making big bucks, pushing Stoicism to CEOs. He alone may have ruined the whole thing. Yeah. I mean, what do you mean ruined? People have abused philosophy forever. I don't think he ruined it. And I think me and Aris are both actually, even though we are anti-Stoic at the moment, I think we're both of the sort of very Buddhist perspective that, it's probably good for people anyway. So I don't mind, some of the tech bros being all Stoic. I'm that's probably, better than being shitty at it. So I'm not super hating on people pushing a little bit of Stoic philosophy. It's if you want to learn more, get a better version of philosophy, there are other resources out there. But I like the idea. I went over to my buddy's house and he had Marcus Aurelius in his on his toilet for bathroom reading. I was fine by me. I don't think he got a whole lot out of it, but better than reading crap. Might as well go read Marcus. Marcus is a good writer. Luke says, regarding pushing training books, that's probably true for lots of ideas. Yeah, I completely agree. So I don't actually hate, I don't like it in terms of philosophy, but as far as something to read, Marcus Aurelius is fine. That's good. Okay. Both refer back to the Stoic concept that it is not what happens to individuals, but rather how they view what happens to them that determines their emotional reaction to events. Of interest here, though, is the difference between Burns and Ellis' views of the causes of cognitive disturbance. For Ellis, as mentioned, the key element causing humans not to have life satisfaction and happiness is grandiosity, which we thought was maybe a little bit overblown. The key element for Burns is not grandiosity, but rather the human tendency to overgeneralize. Okay, so we've got overgeneralization versus grandiosity. Now, I don't know what Burns means by overgeneralization here. Burns' 10 basic cognitive distortions. 1. All or nothing thinking, that's defined as seeing persons, events, and conditions as all negative. Overgeneralization, negative exaggeration of the importance of self, events, and conditions. Mental filter, not considering positive aspects of one's situation. Disqualifying the positive, not considering positive aspects of one's circumstances. Jumping to conclusions, that's mind reading and the fortune teller error. That is believing that one knows what others are thinking, particularly when one believes that they are thinking negative thoughts. Let's see. So we're on number 6. What's Unreal say? Unreal says, I guess I mean by ruin, simplifying to the point of making it stupid. There's good stoicism, whether you end up agreeing with it, but it's become popular with tech bro CEOs, etc., kind of like the utilitarianism effect over altruism, Sam Bankman-Fried progression. Yeah. I kind of see it as inevitable that, like, good philosophy is going to be co-opted and ruined. And so it's like, yeah, it's bad, but like, so what? That's just kind of what people do. We take good stuff and then, like, you know, it gets filtered down and, you know, repackaged and sold. And it's what happens. It's like, okay. And I didn't think you were like, you know, it's like, yeah, there is no ruining it. This is just how it goes. So it's like, yeah, it's going to be stupid one way or the other. So it's fair. Okay. So 6, magnification, catastrophizing or minimization. So exaggerating a negative comment or situation, and minimizing is a positive comment or situation. Yeah. Yeah, why do we do this crap? We always beat ourselves up for no good reason. Emotional reasoning, believing that one's emotions are fundamental as to how one sees events rather than just believing that how one views, judges an event is fundamental to how one feels about an event. And see, this is what I was actually disagreeing with. Thank you for the subscription, Luke. And I'm happy you figured out Twitch. Yeah. So, thank you for the subscription. You got to see the other alert. Yeah, he's learning. It's amazing. Yeah, how did you get here, Luke? If you don't mind me asking. You don't have to tell me, of course, but like, how do you find? Because I saw, like, I can see kind of when you click the follow button, and that was like a few hours ago when no one else was on Twitch, as far as I know. But anyway, yeah. So this is what I was just saying. The idea that all of your emotions should be subservient to your rationality, I disagree with. I'm not a stoic. I'm a cynic. And so cynicism is just more like, shit is stupid. But like, stupid is fundamental in that case. So it's not so simple. Like, it's just be like, okay, you need to be more rational in the way you understand the world, and then emotionally, and then regulate your emotions through that rational point of view. I don't do that. I say, well, look, you see the world and it should piss you off sometimes, not all the time. And so you have to be able to separate those things out. You should not be like stupidly irrational at times because that's bad for you. I mean, no one disagrees. And children do learn. Yes. So, but like, yeah, this is my disagreement. So it's like, there is emotional reasoning, but like, not all of it is bad. Okay. Should statements, belief of what that one should do well, that others should treat one well, and that conditions should be positive and pleasant. Yes, everything should be pleasant. We're in Pleasantville now. Labeling and mislabeling a negative event, negative exaggeration of a person, event, or condition, and personalization. Exaggerated beliefs that one is the sole cause of negative outcomes. Yeah, I wish I had control over all my negative outcomes. Emotions are fundamental decision making. Luke says, I got here because I was writing a discussion note but was uncertain about my reasoning, so I ended up finding my Roulette 108 on self-locating beliefs. Oh my god, that was so long ago. Yeah. I mean, you can see I'm on Philosophy Roulette 541 now. But yeah, Philosophy Roulette 108, self-locating beliefs. Oh, right. There we go. Children's with the S. That's essential to the quote. Okay, what I missed do. Children's do learn. Oh, I forgot. That's right. Good old George W. Bush. The good old days of, yeah. Okay, so yeah, you found it through the YouTube. Very cool, Luke. Philosophy Roulette 108. That was like a few months into the pandemic. I remember someone, I think it was, what's his name? Shit, I'm blanking. I can see his face. Can't think of the name. Is what happens when I'm streaming. I lose name recognition. Like get like you get I get aphantasia streaming. It's like it's weird. Not aphantasia, aphasia. I get aphasia streaming. I lose word and name recognition. I can't pull it up. Recollection. But like, yeah, so I used to send all the authors emails when I read their papers, and he saw like what number I was on, and he was like, how long have you been doing this for? I was like, 3 weeks, because I was doing so many papers a day. Yeah. Breaking news: ontologist loses object permanence. Yeah, I mean, my brain starts, like I always say, like after a few hours of this, my brain starts going. I think it's not only me just trying to explain stuff, it's the constant breathing and talking. I'm basically hyperventilating myself, dehydrating myself, and attempting to do something complicated. And like, yeah, you want to lose your mind? You can do this. I could not do this. Like, I used to do this for longer, but no one was in chat, didn't have to talk to people. And then, like, if I was playing video games, it'd be one thing, but I'm reading, explaining, and talking, like, all at once. I lose my mind. Yeah. Okay. Our ability to generalize, that is, to reason inductively, is obvious of great benefit to us. Were we not able to generalize, every time that we saw an object such as an orange, for example, it would be as if we were seeing it for the first time. We would never be able to derive the probable characteristics of the orange that we are currently holding from other oranges previously encountered. Consequently, we would be burdened with perceiving a world where everything sensed would always be new and unknown. Okay, I hate this metaphysics here, but like, this is very standard shit, even though I disagree with this stuff. Yeah. All right, like this here, if anyone knows Wittgenstein, they'd just be like, this is not how it works. But anyway, team induction, yeah. Well, of course you can induct. It's just the way they specifically said this, it's just not good. But okay, it's not like wrong. It's just philosophically, I don't think so. Okay, because we have become adept at generalizing, however, we tend carelessly to overgeneralize, and for Burns, this predisposition is a key source of human misery and unhappiness. Of Burns' 10 basic cognitive distortions that lead to unhappiness, presented in the table, 7 of them, namely all or nothing thinking, overgeneralization, and here he uses the term itself as one of the 7, mental filter, disqualifying the positive, jumping to conclusions, magnification or minimization, and labeling. Yeah, and this is what Vipers pointed out earlier, there's a labeling phenomena. Relate to overgeneralization. 2 others, should statements and personalizations relate to grandiosity, and Burns' final cognitive distortion, emotional reasoning, simply relates to the link between thoughts and emotions. What gives emotional reasoning a malignant cast, though, are the more basic elements of grandiosity and overgeneralization, which lead to dysfunctionality. Okay. So we've got all these things that we do that we may be inaccurate in describing the world, and this makes us unhappy. And so, for you Bayesians out there, all the errors in reason you make, that's what's making you unhappy. But that's the general picture here. This is sort of like you have misperceived the world or misinterpreted the world. If you had only correctly interpreted things, you'd be fine. Which I find oversimplified. It's not so easy to just see the world the right way. It's not even like, I don't even know if that makes sense. Like we don't have all the concepts we're going to need. Like the concepts we need to describe the world the right way. Like in the future, we're going to look back on this time and place that we're at and be like, oh yeah, this is what was happening. But we needed a lot of time and reflection to see that. we're never in the position to like understand our situation because we just don't have all the concepts we're going to need yet. They're going to be available in the future, maybe the distant future, maybe they'll never be available. But like I find this to be a sort of a little bit unstable of a thought that we could just see the world the right way. Luke says maybe you'd be worse off interpreting the world accurately. Could be more depressing than we think it is. Yeah, that's possible too. But the point stands, it's like they think that there's just the right way of seeing the world, and I don't know if there's a right way or that we'd have any way of actually accessing the right way of seeing the world until maybe way in the future, if ever. I mean, people, they tend to look at the past with like rose-colored glasses anyway. So it's like just because we think it wasn't so good, we think we understand how the past was now, that's usually an oversimplification too. So, whatever's. All right, philosophical origins of Ellis's REBT. To engage the philosophy behind CBT, we trace the ideas that influenced Ellis in his development of rational and motive behavioral therapy. Then we move to the ideas that informed Burns' cognitive behavioral therapy. As mentioned, these sources include Stoicism, Buddhism, Taoism, and existentialism. Aristotle and the Stoics. Ellis develops two central Stoic ideas. The first is that it is our belief about our situation that is responsible for our psychological state. The second concerns agency, namely that we do what we can, but if the situation is beyond our control, then it is best to let it go. If nothing else, our belief about our situation remains within our control. We can at the very least choose how to see our situation. And this is actually a debate in philosophy. Can we actually choose our beliefs? Now, we can reinterpret the way we see a situation, and then there's like little, like hair splitting over what counts as a belief and what counts as interpretation. But like, just want to be clear in terms of the philosophy. These people here, they're using belief in sort of the, how we interpret the world. And we can choose in some sense to like reinterpret stuff, because we can do that. We can interpret it in one way and then reinterpret it and then, prefer the second over the first. Okay, the ancient Greeks described individuals who lived well and flourished throughout their lives as enjoying eudaimonia. To better understand the Stoics, it is best to contextualize their philosophy as responding to Aristotle's claim in the Nicomachean Ethics that eudaimonia, happiness, the good life, is not accessible to everyone. And our buddy Aris, who's probably lurking, although I don't look at the lurk list, I'm going to give him a shout out though. Shout out. Okay, he is not actually lurking. Because if it would have if it autofilled, but yeah, it did not autofill. But yeah, he knows all about this shit. Like, you can go talk to him about this if you are interested in ethics or classical, like Greek or Roman philosophy. So, okay, it's not acceptable. Everyone, yeah, like for example, Aristotle recognizes if you're poor, it's harder to be happy. Am I sure about that? That Aris would describe the philosophy I said better than I would? Yeah, he knows more about it. I am sure about that. According to Aristotle, eudaimonia is contingent on factors beyond our control. Oh, about him lurking? No. The autofill, though, usually fills if you're in chat. He may be lurking somehow, but he may not be in chat, whatever that is. I meant that he's not lurking? No, I'm not sure, and I don't want you to tell me if he is. I'm guessing. But I don't actually ever look at the lurk list. If anyone here is just lurking, I'm not going to call you out. No one else, please appreciate it if you don't, because I know from my experience on Twitch, sometimes you just want to be left alone and you want to consume media as you want to do it. And so is my position generally that well, you misspelled the name first of all on that one, Tindarius. 2 T's at the end of Aristotle. So I mean, I always ask that like you don't call people out, at least in my chat, because I appreciate, a little bit of like leave me the fuck alone sometimes. So yeah. Okay, according to Aristotle, eudaimonia is contingent on factors. There you go, Tindarius. According to Aristotle, eudaimonia is contingent on factors beyond our control, and it is for this reason that eudaimonia is not accessible to all. Yeah, exactly. I was saying, if you're poor, it's harder to be happy. It's the old thing. Well, money doesn't make you happy. Yeah, but it sure as fuck makes it easier. Aristotle believed that individuals who are poor or who have bad luck, for instance, may be unable to develop some of the traits that characterize a eudaimon person. Very poor people lack the wherewithal to help their friends, and Aristotle urges that because of their poverty, they may be unable to fully develop the trait of generosity. Others may have enjoyed a long period of well-being and flourishing only to be struck by bad luck towards the end of their life. Aristotle's account of eudaimonia is contingent on factors beyond the control of individuals. However, the Stoics and later Alice reject Aristotle's claim. And of course, Aristotle says, look, you can make yourselves happy, but like that's not the only thing. Aristotle is more on the ground. He says, look, you can make yourself happy. It's up to your like developing your virtues. But if you're too poor to do it, then that's not your fault. Viper says the only thing we can concern is that one day we will die. That's true. And taxes. The electrical impulses our body will cease and lose muscle control, and our bowels will finally let go of that shit. Yes, it will. Death and taxes. That's the only thing certain in the world. Yeah. And Luke says, well, maybe there's an immortal soul. Yes, maybe there is. And maybe I'm rich and I'm just fucking around with you people. And that's not the case. Okay, when considering what a good life entails, the Stoics, like Aristotle before them, believe that the place to start is by asking ourselves what the distinguishing feature of human beings happens to be. Both the Stoics and Aristotle believe that this feature is our ability to reason. Oh, and anyone who doesn't know in chat, Aristotle was a rich kid. He was very wealthy. He was from a wealthy family. He was hanging around a lot of rich people, so it's like he knew what it was to have like money. So yeah. You disagree, Tax, as a philosophical anarchist? Well, yeah, go find yourself a place where you don't have to pay taxes. What's up, Bowser Big Bean Burrito? How you doing today? Hope you're eating well. Looks like you are. Yeah, and see, this is what I'm talking about. Bowser Big Bean Burrito likes to post emotes. Fine by me. So you can use Twitch as you see fit, as long as you're not like ruining someone else's stream. Okay. So the chief feature is our ability to reason. Because humans are a part of nature, we are subject to the same transformations that the universe as a whole undergoes. Certain in our lifetime, but not so certainty like death. Well, and I mean, if you want to get serious about it, then yeah, you can do are you certain there is no immortal soul too? And then of course you can't prove a negative, who knows? So, yeah. The idea that human beings in the universe constitute the same rational nature is a central Stoic insight. Human nature and nature itself, that's a capital N nature, should be over here, are one and the same because both are guided by reason, that's logos. The Stoics trust that everything that takes place is for the overall good. Just as every organ in our body naturally seeks that which is beneficial to it, humans in the same manner, along with all living organisms and ecosystems that constitute the universe, seek what is optimal for them. Yeah, I mean, this is old philosophy, and I'm sure all of you can poke a million holes in this at the moment, but okay. It's there's no destructive things in nature? I don't think so. Okay, the Stoics disregard the external goods, luck, money, good looks, for instance, that endangered the achievement of eudaimonia for Aristotle. In this sense, the Stoics, unlike Aristotle, believe that everyone is capable of enjoying eudaimonia. So, very egalitarian here, I guess. It's very universal. Yeah, my organ seeks out mugshotties. And without the mugshotties, would you be happy? We need our mugshotties. The Stoics acknowledged that external goods were beyond human control and called them unnecessaries. External goods were not necessary for eudaimonia since reason is sufficient for a good life. Yeah, they were terribly, sort of cognitivist, intellectualist. Terrible, terrible, terrible. It's if you're starving, you're not going to have a good life. It's just painful. Given that everyone has the capacity to act according to their human nature, eudaimonia may be enjoyed by all who make choices that reflect their rational nature, not on whether they obtain things desired. For the Stoics, reason plays a fundamental role in our well-being as humans. For human nature is characterized by our ability to reason. If the choices we make reflect our rational ability, then we are functioning optimally as human beings. It is through our rational ability that we can make sense of our environment and act accordingly. Our ability to reason allows us to turn every hindrance into material for itself. Yeah, I mean, sounds very capitalistic. You can see why this gets co-opted. We get to make everything serve our rational functions. Sort of a pro-capital version of mental ability. Okay. in material for itself to grow from our experiences and turn our challenges into opportunities for learning and growth. Central to Stoic doctrine is the idea that living well as humans entails living in agreement with nature and thus allowing reason to guide us. Yeah. And of course, no one knows, keep in mind, no one actually knows what nature is, or reason for that matter, and that's why these things get abused so much by people who aren't serious about the philosophy. They just want to use it. Okay. Because of their emphasis on reason, the Stoics believed that moderating our emotions was of utmost importance. Only through a balanced temperament can we correct erroneous judgments that result from our emotions. If we are disturbed by a situation, we have to ask ourselves if there is anything we can do about it. What is within our control is the power of our will. If we can do something to make our situation better, then we should act on it. However, if the situation is beyond the power of our will, then it is best for us not to be disturbed by it, given that there is nothing we can do about it. Epictetus advises us to realize that there are many things beyond our control, such as the sorrow that may come because of our loss of a person or an object of our affection. In these cases, it makes no sense to continue crying out, wishing things were otherwise. I mean, it'd be good if you didn't feel so shitty, but I don't think it doesn't make any sense. Like, I think it makes perfect sense. Like, what do you mean it doesn't make sense? I don't think, I just, find this psychologically unrealistic. You lose something, you lose someone in your life. You had a whole, way that your life was going to go with that person. Then they disappear. Now, all of a sudden, all the things in your life have to change. It's not like you just be like, oh yeah, they're gone and there's nothing I can do about it. Now I have to not feel bad, because all the things in your life were already oriented with respect to that person. And it's like, well, now you have to change all the things. That takes time and effort. It's like, oh yeah, it's out of my control. I'm not thinking about it anymore. It's like, that's not how anything works. Okay. Marcus Aurelius tells us that only a madman wants a fig during winter. The colloquial saying, "it is what it is," reflects the Stoic insight that we frustrate ourselves unnecessarily by disagreeing with nature and resisting the flow of experience rather than surrendering to it. Epictetus admonishes his readers that we be no better than bratty children if we did not understand this fact about life. Stoic philosophy may be described as an approach to life that uses the setback to reflect another virtue. It understands the problems we encounter in life as opportunities for character development. Yeah, so it takes everything into your character. That's just the nature of Stoicism, is that it's up to your character to change. The world is the way it is, and you have to change to adapt to the world. It's not go change the world. You have to adapt to it. Okay, Ellis developed the Stoic idea that it is how we think about our situation that shapes our state of being. If, for instance, a close friend were to let us down, we could think about this situation in various ways. We could wish this had never happened and feel angry, betrayed, or miserable. We could come to terms with the fact that our friend indeed has let us down, and we could ask ourselves if there's anything we can do to make our situation better. If there's something we can do, then we act accordingly. If there's nothing we can do, then we can accept our loss. This Stoic insight is developed further by Ellis when he explains that many of us feel angry, resentful, or anxious because we want things to go our way, and sometimes they do not. Viper says, "It is what it is." It is a thought-terminating cliche. It's not like the capitalists don't want us to think. They want you to think that you want what they're selling, I guess. That's what they want you to think. Yeah. I mean, do the capitalists actually want you to think anything? No, they just want you buying stuff. But yes, I get the joke. In other words, we tend to insist that the following be true, namely that other people must always treat us well and that our surrounding environment must always be acceptable to us. No think, only buy. Yes. Ellis reminds us that unlike the law of gravity or the first law of, technically it's the illusion of choice. They want you to think that you have a choice, I guess. Vipers is ahead of the game as per usual. Think different. Yeah, you're choosing differently, just according to what they say. Okay, we would be justified in holding on to our musts only if there was such a law of nature. Given that there is no such law, it sometimes happens that others do not treat us royally nor do we live in palaces. Ellis then recommends that we change the way we think about our situation. Instead of demanding that the universe cater to us, we could instead think that it would be preferable if others treated us well in our living conditions, were agreeable to us, rather than demanding favorable treatment by others and demanding optimal living conditions. Yeah, we should just, don't worry that the rich people have tons of stuff and, that the tech companies are basically dominating, like they're gonna just take over all like the jobs with like the AIs. We should just feel better about that. We're gonna be starving and jobless and have no money, and it's on us. We don't worry about it. Okay. The second Stoic idea that Ellis develops concerns the power and limits of human agency, and this is related to our section on existentialism below. We do what we can, but if the situation is beyond our control, then it is best to accept it for what it is. Most importantly, how we perceive our situation is still within our control. Alright, so now we've moved on to the Taoists. Ellis developed several Taoist tenets in his formulation of REBT. Among these are the Taoist distrust of categorizations, the Taoist understanding of the process of living as an activity that can be improved with practice, and the Taoist idea of feeling at one with the universe. Ellis credits the Taoist anti-categorization belief as having influenced his development of REBT. Tao is often translated as path or way. However, trying to define Tao entails a paradox because a tenet of Taoism is that Tao is not something that can be defined. The first verse of the Tao Te Ching states, quote, "The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name." End quote. Central to Taoism is anti-categorization impetus that rejects definitions and categorizations as ossified misrepresentations of what is vitally changing. For the Taoist, we and the universe are in a constant process of transformation that prevents us from coming to conclusions about the nature of things. Yeah. And this gets represented in analytic philosophy. Is you say, look, we have models of the way the world is, and they may be models of like, a particular moment in time or like some like moments or whatever. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to cover the entire universe. We just don't have that sort of access. Okay. Though admittedly the human ability to categorize allows us to get along in life better than otherwise, it has its drawbacks. Because of our ability to categorize, we have the tendency to allow our categorizations to trump our experience so that we attempt to fit our experience into our preconceived notions of how things are supposed to be. Ellis, as well as Burns, point out that this is the source of much of our anxiety. I mean, we have ideas, and again, the way we think the world is supposed to be, that's like how you think your life is supposed to be. Of course you're going to have these things. You can't not have conceptions about how you want the world to be. Like, what else would you have? Okay. Taoism warns us that name something is to fix it in time, and to fix that which is inherently changing human beings, relationships, and our experience is surely to bring us trouble. Yeah, I mean, if you get overly fixated on this stuff, it's not good. But like of course you're going to have wants and needs. Like, yeah. Alright, Ellis warns us against making categorical judgments such as, I'm a loser, or he is a jerk. Oh, there's talk about Twitch chat. Because no one is a complete failure, nor is anyone a complete jerk. Statements such as, I'm supposed to make more money, and she should be more patient, are examples of how we try to fit ourselves, other people, and our experience into preconceived categories. Besides being misguided, categorical judgments can be dehumanizing when we demand that we and others behave according to rigid categories. I'm sorry, Twitch chat, I love you. Another aspect of Taoism that influenced Ellis is the idea that life itself is itself an activity at which we fail at times, but at which we can continue to work until the activity becomes effortless and we become one with the activity. We can think of living as something that can be improved with practice. Doing this creates the possibility for us to move away from struggling our way through life toward enjoying the process of living. The book of Shuangzi relates the story of Cook Ting, who exemplifies the Taoist notion of Wu Wei. Wu Wei may be interpreted as the skill of effortless doing, paying attention to the little details as to nip problems in the bud before they become insurmountable. Cook Ting cuts with such effortless skill that he never had to sharpen his knife. He knew exactly where to cut so that his knife never met any resistance. Similarly, it is possible for us through practice to move outside of ourselves in the activity of living. This state of enjoyment and well-being has been described as flow, characteristic of the pleasure we experience from engaged, focused concentration and complete immersion in an activity such as dancing, gardening, or playing a sport. Yeah. This freaking name? This is the person who like defined flow like in contemporary society. I have no idea how to say it. Csikszentmihalyi. Yeah. The flow is described as being similar to the playing of children. These are moments when we are one with and become lost in our activity. Ellis tells us that there is no simple formula for happiness. The best we can do is to continue practicing and develop the skill of making ourselves less disturbable. Yeah, this is the old, you should just be flowing in life. Just be like, effortlessly moving. Again, how does that happen? Who the hell knows? It's difficult, but, it does happen sometimes. Csikszentmihalyi. Csikszentmihalyi, yeah. So, okay, I will, thank you, Unreal Brian. I will forget, though. Alright, Buddhism. Another important, yeah. And, I'm not against the Taoist stuff either. It's like, yeah, these are definite things that you can get better at. You can practice to the point where you're not thinking about stuff anymore. These are actual things. But, like, yeah. So, I agree with this perspective that there is, progress that can be made. Then like you can learn to get better at stuff and then just do it. So that's the question of, again, we were talking about this earlier. How do you just sort of see the world in a different way? Well, you can do it. Not exactly clear how. And we were discussing like, well, if it's learning, but what are you learning when you see the world differently? What have you learned? Like you couldn't have seen it before because then you would have already seen it, but then you have to like sort of change your viewpoint. And so it's not really a learning thing in my opinion, but I'm not exactly sure how this happens either. Like, I don't think we have all the concepts in this area to really describe how to change the way we see the world. And this is when I say stuff like that, that's like a phenomenological question. How do we change the way the world appears to us? And when I say it that way, appears to us, then all of a sudden it's like, well, you can't change the way the world is. It just appears a certain way. Well, that's the question. You can recommend Mihalyi's book about flow. Yeah. I knew that. I did not read it, but I've seen it quoted a lot of times. So I figured and I've seen it been like quoted as like he's the man for discussing flow. Okay, Buddhism. And on that point, there's some Heideggerians out of Harvard. I forget the guy's name, but I've recommended his podcast to, I think, Tindarios about like all things shining or whatever. And so they're Heideggerians, like the Heidegger book, and they were talking about flow, a lot of that stuff too. So yeah. Let's see something real fast. Is this going to work? Let's see. Yeah. Alright, I don't know if something broke, but we'll find out. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm not against the Taoist flow stuff. Alright, Buddhism. Another important influence on REBT was Buddhism. According to Dhammapada, a traditional Buddhist scripture from the Theravada school, the ultimate cause of desire and suffering is a mistaken view of the self. Luke says, hypothesis regarding how developing the skills of perspective, taking, or noticing thoughts, emotion that allows opportunity to actively adopt a new point of view. It's Sean Kelly. Thank you, Valpo. Yes, Sean Kelly. Yeah, and he was working with Dreyfus also. And it's too bad Dreyfus died a few years ago. Like, that was actually CWA Heideggerians out of Harvard. Yeah, Sean Kelly is a philosopher in Harvard. And so, Dreyfus was out in California somewhere, but he was working with Sean Kelly. And there's a podcast, or it was there was the audio recordings of a class that Sean Kelly taught in preparation while writing his book. This is how philosophers do stuff. They want to write their book. They want feedback. And so they teach the book basically before they teach the class on the manuscript so that you hear all the ideas and like the kids get to give feedback and Sean can like modify stuff and then you put the book out. But like that's normal practice. But yeah, it's a Heideggerian sort of philosophers working on this Taoist flow idea. Okay, like the Taoists, Buddhists believe that all phenomena are empty of inherent existence, and that ignorance of this fact is what causes our suffering. Buddhism explains that the problem with believing that there is a permanent self is that it results in our taking... Excuse me, dinner's attacking me again. Buddhism explains that the problem with believing that there is a permanent self is that it results in our taking ourselves far too seriously. When we take our individual selves to be of ultimate importance, we sink into egoism, which according to Buddhist teachings leads us to develop strong feelings of desire and aversion. Ignorance of the inherent impermanence of phenomena leads us to exaggerate the identity of those whom we love or despise, forgetting that with the passage of time, our most beloved friends may become our enemies, and those who have wronged us in the past might turn out to be of help to us. Overconcern for the self often leads us to try to control other people or situations that ultimately are out of our control. We feel an unhealthy amount of anxiety wishing for everything to go our way, or we become preoccupied with the concern that all our needs and wants must be satisfied. The way I, with which we identify the I in quote, is inherently impermanent and has come to be because of other events and people. Yeah, and that's the Dalai Lama quote. For example, the pages in a book that we read seem to be solid and independent substances, however they are inherently impermanent and came into being through a series of causes and conditions. Viper says, that's Aris's business plan. First he asks questions on stream and we tell him what to put in the book, then he sells our ideas back to us. Vipers, that's a lot of books. That's not just that's a lot of academic philosophy. Like you're not an academic philosopher, but I'm sure like Valpo will back this up because Valpo is an academic philosopher. Almost all papers by like academic philosophers and books are discussed in classes and with grad students and grad classes before they go to publication. This is like normal practice, is that like you're developing this material, then you teach a course on it, and then given all the things you learn over the course of like teaching students and getting the feedback, that's what all gets put into a book or a paper. And yeah, like this is Unreal says that's a big way that grad seminars are made. Yeah, like so anyone in the business, this is exactly common standard practice. So the idea that this is Aris's business plan is like, no, this is just the business plan, not Aris. This is just the business plan. Yeah. But that's one of the interesting things about someone like me who's not in academia. I don't have the same resources. Like I don't have a class. I don't have grad students I can go ask about like, hey, you want to discuss papers and stuff. Because, you know, the grad students, they want to jump on this too. You have to understand the grad students, by seeing stuff that's like in the works, they sometimes can, you know, go get their own like ideas on the topic and then go write papers on things that are in development. And then it looks like, you know, hey, they had this great idea, but like it was all just like, you know, one person had an idea and then they all kind of like, one person did this aspect, another person did this aspect. This is how like sort of a little bit of the academic bullshit works. So like the students then may get ideas and like papers that are related to the professor, and then, you know, then everyone publishes and everyone like cross-references each other, and such as academia. Okay. Academia. Okay. They were first trees that were cut down and carried to a mill where they were made into paper, which then was shaped into book page format on which words were printed, and these words came from the author of the book that we are reading. Many people were involved in the process of making the pages of the book. Similarly, although as individual people we may seem as though we are independent and permanent beings, we are in fact the product of many experiences. Yeah, rant over. Yeah, Valpo says, would that I had grad students. Yeah, and so this is how things are done with people at well-funded institutions with grad students. Everyone else is closer to me, actually. Like, not everyone has grad students they can go do. Not everyone has, like, classes that they can just arbitrarily teach whenever they want and talk to even undergrads. But, like, yeah. So, like, I'm not so far off. Like, even though I'm not in academia, I'm not so far off from the academics who don't have like very strong funding in departments. So yeah, it's like, and I didn't realize that for a while. I was like, you know, well, these people got all these like resources. Like, no, they actually don't. Okay. The sense of a permanent self is felt strongest when we either strongly are attracted to or are repulsed by someone else, as when we feel that she loves me or how dare he say that to me. Instead of automatically reacting with either strong desire or aversion, Buddhism encouraged us to feel equanimity and compassion for all beings and to understand that they are, in part, the product of series of causes and conditions that have led them to behave the way they do. Mindfulness-based approaches such as mindfulness-based cognitive therapy and mindfulness-based stress reduction have been successfully combined with REBT during the last 20 years, in large part due to the parallels between the Buddhist and the REBT's view of the self. The Buddhist no-self view not only would change our approach as to how we live our lives and how we view our relationships, but also it would change our perception of time itself. When we feel anxiety for what the future might bring, or when we constantly look forward in time, we are in fact foregoing the present moment, wishing that we were in some future time or when our desires presumably would be fulfilled. This makes for an existence that, according to Cooperman, is rather like the inner life of a greyhound chasing wooden rabbits around a track. We will never arrive at a point in our lives where we feel at peace if we are constantly striving. By living in this way, we forego the richness of our present, constantly wishing for success in the future. I mean, lots of stuff tries to get you to do that. Religions mostly. They're like, oh yes, you are chasing the immortal afterlife in heaven. You have to act a certain way. Don't mind that you don't have enough food. Just go attack. Yeah, exactly, Bowser. Existentialism. REBT takes an existentialist approach to therapy and prescribes active work on the part of the client. Ellis believes that even if we have a history of being a certain type of person, we can choose to work to create deep and lasting changes in the way we think, act, and feel about others, our situation, and ourselves. One of the central existentialist tenets is that human beings are not substances with fixed properties. A person's identity is not defined by nature or culture, nor is there a predetermined essence given to individuals that they must fulfill. Instead, to exist means to create our own identity as we live and make choices. Viper says all his life he looked away, to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was. What he was doing. Yoda, yes. So, this is the idea. But again, are the Jedis really any better? The Jedis always are talking about the Force and how it's making you do something. They're not talking about what, like in the here and now, you have some greater power that's directing you. So are they really making for a here and now philosophy? No, you're guided by the midichlorians. You're guided by the Force. I'm not sure they're way better. So yeah. Heidegger, more or less. Let's see what this is. What do we have here? Argumentum ad lucas. Yes, Ivan. That's actually a good one. Oh, man. Straight out of Harvard. The problem is this doesn't look like Boston. Well, actually, could this be Boston? This looks more New Yorkish than Boston, but it could be. Like, there's a few, like in Boston, there's spots like this. Yeah, but this is not what Harvard looks like, though. But, like, yeah, that's the only problem with this picture, because otherwise it's, like, hilariously funny. But, like, basically, like, if this looked like Cambridge, it would be perfect, but it doesn't look like Cambridge. Harvard. Okay, the identity of individuals is created only insofar as they act. For example, people may choose to smoke. Only insofar as they choose to smoke are they smokers. They can choose to act differently, that is, not to smoke rather than to smoke. Individuals are free to act in one way or another, given that humans are not essentially smokers or non-smokers. Central to existential, but aren't you, if you're an existentialist, have to, like, smoke in, like, a cafe in France? I thought that was, like, what you had to be. Anyway. Central to existentialism is the concept of freedom. The projects in which we engage and that shape our lives, such as getting married or choosing a career, are examples of existential choices that we continue to choose. According to existentialist philosophy, when choosing how to live our life, we first choose our values, then we act based on these values. Although the emphasis in existentialism is on choice, certainly there are facts about us, that is, facticity, such as our context, our culture, and our personal history, that we cannot deny and that do narrow the choices available to us. Yeah, this facticity. This is actually, you find this in Heidegger. It's a Heideggerian term about the facts of the world and the way we have to just sort of take what we're thrown into. In analytic philosophy, we talk about factivity, and it's slightly different, but not really, because a lot of this I think goes back to Wittgenstein and says the world is the world, like the world is all that is the case. It's like the state of things, and so this is the state of things in the world. All right, so it's like these are just like the context with which we are dealing with. Facticity acknowledges that although we are free to choose, we are influenced by our environment. Although both Ellis and Burns believe that individuals are free to change the way they think, both acknowledge that CBT may not be sufficient for people who suffer from severe mental disorders, so that a combination of psychotherapy along with other medically accepted approaches might be most effective. An existentialist approach towards freedom and choice emphasizes that individuals need to realize that they do have choices. Ellis emphasizes that his clients can choose the way in which they view situations that result in their being anxious, angry, or depressed. Both existentialism and REBT work with the assumption that each one of us is free to choose to view our challenges in a different light, to react positively about what is within our control, not to be anxious or worried about what is beyond our control, and to work at changing the irrational beliefs that cause our suffering. So, all right, now finally, philosophical origins of Burns CBT. So that was all the history. Besides the philosophies, here we speak of philosophy in the broad sense of the word as an approach to life that influenced Ellis. Philosophy was also helpful to the development of CBT as developed by Beck and Burns, who had their clients examine their pattern of irrational thinking. Much of the anxiety and depression we feel is, in fact, because we maintain irrational thoughts or conclusions. I mean, no one likes to feel crazy, I guess. That's a universal. No one likes to feel stupid. No one likes to feel like they don't know what's going on. No one likes to be confused. Yeah. There's a lot of like, what is it to like understand? Like, no one wants to be confused. It's uncomfortable. So I always wonder about that. Like, there's all these things that you say you have to like not be like, you have to see the world right. But like, who's just talking about like, what is it to be confused? I don't know. Yeah, have you met stoners? That's true too. But yeah, I mean, they're medicated, so it's medication. I can't talk today. Back before weed was legal recreationally in the U.S., and it's only recreationally legal in like some states, but it was medically available in certain places. And so people would be getting stoned because, you know, on Twitch. And I was watching a stream where people, or maybe it was a YouTube thing, where they were getting so stoned and they were like, I am so medicated. And all their lingo was like medicinal, like oriented. And it was very clear that these guys were just stoners, but everything was like, I'm so medicated. I have like, it was just very weird because it was, obviously abusing the medical licensing just to get stoned. I mean, I don't have a problem with people getting stoned, but it was just funny to hear like all the medical lingo being used in regards to just like obviously just partying. So, yeah. And anyway, when you're stoned, even though you may be confused, you don't seem to you don't know you're confused. Sometimes you're confused, but you don't like that. But you don't seem to know you're as confused when you're stoned. Like when I'm stoned, I mean, when I'm writing, I drink, I smoke, whatever. I'll get stoned. I don't smoke cigarettes, but I'll drink. I'll write stuff down in my notebook, and I know when I'm like not sober, it is not as good writing. It just isn't. And so it's like, I'm like, oh, this is, and I don't know it at the time when I'm writing it. I think it sounds like a fucking great idea when I'm writing it down at that time. When I look the next day when I'm sober, I'm like, that was terrible. But like, I didn't know it back then. I didn't know I was confused. So yeah. What annoys Tinderis is when people use the word invest when they simply mean spending money. Yeah. All right, we've got a updated setting here. Let's find out. Yeah, see, that's way more like it. So, like, here we go. Because it looks a little bit more, like, you can see a big building in the background, but it's more like a quad. Stay at Harvard. And, like, it looks almost like Harvard here at the bottom, where that there's, like, an icon there. But, yeah, it's sort of, Yeah, it's Heidegger-ish looking. I don't know if he had a sleeve. I pretty much doubt that he did, but like some Aryan symbology or something, symbolism. It's got it looks like a bird or an eye or something. Yeah, fun. Symbology, people. Symbology. Okay. Yeah, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah. Tattoo was fun. The systematic analysis of reasoning began when Aristotle developed categorical logic and scrutinized arguments for their validity. I mean, I don't know if this was it, but I mean, that doesn't matter. Diaz says if you invest in something, it implies that you expect a return of your money in the future. Yeah, I mean, people say they invest time too. They want some return, but you're not getting your time back. But people do use, at least in English, I don't know how it's used in German, but like if you invest time in something, like you invest your time in going back to school for like a degree. And so it's like, yeah, if they expect some sort of return for it, I mean, yeah. You think there's a dead Kennedy's logo in there? That's fun. Yeah. All right. I shouldn't gripe about their, attributing something to Aristotle. Maybe right. Aristotle identified 13 informal fallacies, and this list has continued to grow since his time. A fallacy is a mistaken way of reasoning. It may result from defects in arguments such as false premises, faulty pattern of arguing, or the creation of an illusion that makes mistaken arguments appear to be correct. Let us take the following argument for example. Argument. Nothing is better than everlasting love. A bowl of salted peanuts is better than nothing. Therefore, a bowl of salted peanuts is better than everlasting love. There we go. On the face of it, the argument above appears to have a logical structure, that is, the conclusion seems to follow from the premises. Some people will accept this argument, while others may not agree completely, although they may not know exactly why this argument seems odd. The above argument commits the fallacy of equivocation, namely making the use of the same word, nothing, but using it to denote two different meanings. The first being nothing that exists, and the second being not having any other food. Informal fallacies are very common, and here we will analyze the two that stand out as sources of anxiety and depression. Fallacies cause anxiety and depression? Okay, whatever. The first fallacy is commonly known as a false dichotomy. This fallacy assumes that there are only two choices, that things can either be one way or another way, when in fact there are more than two assumed possibilities. Hydrocannabinoid, yeah, here we go. Fight. In time of war, for example, the leader of a country may address the public with a message that says, you are either with us or against us. Other countries are either our allies are in this war or they are our enemies. End quote. Besides having detrimental social consequences, the false dichotomy fallacy easily can become a source of anxiety, anger, or depression in our personal lives. Burns calls this all or nothing thinking. Yeah, this is called Manichaeanism for those who actually care about the history of philosophy. And he describes it as the type of reasoning that makes people see... Did I get that right? Am I losing my mind at the moment? I might be. Manichaeanism. Yeah, so dualistic things. It's where it's just light and dark, one or the other. So I'm not entirely lost my mind yet. Hooray! Yeah, see things in black and white categories so that, for example, individuals fall short of the perfect performance, they spiral into depression and see themselves as complete failures. The false dichotomy fallacy mistakenly assumes that the existence of two absolute categories. When we find that a coworker whom we believe to be our friend actually was spreading rumors about us, we label him a bad person and declare him our enemy with no chance of redemption. False dichotomy reasoning assumes that people are either 100% good or 100% bad, with nothing in between. Not only is this way of thinking illogical, but holding this irrational belief leads to unnecessary suffering. A second logical fallacy that Burns emphasizes is, quote, magnification or minimization, end quote, commonly known as the slippery slope fallacy. This fallacy takes place when the conclusion of an argument rests on an assumed chain reaction that presumably will take place. Only a Sith thinks in absolutes. Obi-Wan Kenobi, yeah. I'm like Vipers, couldn't you have thought of some like funny like way to change Kenobi's name on that one? That's not bad, but like you could have been like Obi. What's a good like philosophy name that sounds like Obi-Wan Kenobi? I don't know. Tindera says, yeah, it's so common people don't realize unnamed possible choices most of the time. Like if someone offers you a snack or drink, you could also ask for both or decline. Yeah. This is all the time though. I kind of object to this entire like section right here. Like I find this very silly. Like there's all sorts of fallacies, and the fact that they're naming a few of them, it's like, okay, but there's a million ways like people mistake it. Now you can a lot of times just sort of like cover large swaths of bad reasoning with just a few names, and that's fine, and that's kind of what I see getting done here. But it's just like they're reasoning poorly, and so as like, are you going to break things down to black and white? That's one way of taking it, but like unnamed possibilities is like another way of saying it. So it's like this, it's all very I get the point, but like it's just, this is all convenient way of like describing, not reasoning well. Okay. A second logical fallacy is Burns is the magnification or minimization, commonly known as a slippery slope fallacy. This fallacy takes place when the conclusion of an argument rests on an assumed chain reaction that presumably will take place. However, there are no concrete reasons to believe that the chain reaction must take place. The following quotation was taken from one of our students' assignments for his introduction to logic class. Quote, a personal example of such a fallacy would be when my friend emotionally broke down after failing a test and said, my life is over, I just failed my test, so now I'll have a bad grade in the class, I will probably fail the class. It's going to be on my transcript forever. When I apply to medical school, not one school will take me, I'll end up working as a janitor in a prison and get stabbed. Wow. Gonna get stabbed because you failed a test. This anguished student went from failing a test to getting stabbed. Burns explains that we commit the same reasoning mistake when we jump to negative conclusions about events or other people when there are no definite facts to support our conclusion. I mean, yeah, you can see this though. Is this really a slippery slope, or is this just fucking nuts? They went from failing a test to getting stabbed. Like, the two things have nothing in common. Now, like nothing in common at all. So I don't feel like this is even a slippery slope. Slippery slope is saying, look, we're going to, from like one little thing, we're going to go all the way in that direction. But failing a test has nothing to do with getting stabbed. So yeah. Unreal says, as opposed to being a doctor in prison, infirmary, and getting stabbed by someone who wants to steal drugs, this isn't, yeah, exactly. What's that, Annalisa? Yeah, this is... Well, that's exactly what this paper is about. This is about cognitive behavioral therapy and the philosophy behind it. But they're calling this a slippery slope, and this is not exactly a slippery slope. But like I was saying before, this annoys me because it's kind of, just sort of being very general and easy with the logical fallacies. But there's no real, like, philosophical problem here. It's just they're not doing, like, it doesn't have to be that, they don't have to be that careful. It's just that it's all just to illustrate poor reasoning. You're a registered psychologist. There we go. Yeah, I'm a philosopher. So if I say anything about the psychology, I may be wrong. But I am going to tell you that they're being overly simplistic with the descriptions of the fallacies. Yeah. Okay, yeah. This is kid freaking out for no good reason because he doesn't know any better. Or she, I don't know. This anguished student went from failing a test to getting stabbed. Burns explains that we commit the same reasoning mistake when we jump to negative conclusions about events or other people when there are no definite facts to support our conclusion. Yeah, see, not slippery slope. It's just having unjustified conclusions. By not questioning their irrational beliefs and conclusions, individuals suffer from anxiety, anger, or depression. Both Ellis and Burns encourage their patients to actively dispute their assumptions and to question their conclusions. Both took philosophical insights and developed concrete techniques to help their patients overcome their neuroses. The following section examines some of these techniques. Okay. Techniques developed to implement CBT. Burns developed a simple and logical paper and pencil technique he calls the triple column technique for individuals to dispute the negative assumptions that they hold. You're falling asleep, so good night. Oh, thank you for being on, Real Brian. Appreciate it. Yeah, well, there's only a page left, but don't let that stop you. The triple column technique for individuals to dispute the negative... Yeah, get your rating in now. It's fine. The first column in the figure holds the automatic thoughts, or AT, that come to mind of the troubled individual. The second column, the cognitive distortion, or CD column, refers to the 10 cognitive distortions given in the figure 1. The advantage of this technique is that the individuals using the technique have to think about the incorrect assumptions that they are making and why they are not accurate. They need to understand why they are distorted views of common reality at column 2, and then they need to correct these distorted views of the reality at column 3, the rational response, or RR column. The relief of moving from a distorted view that threatens individuals to a more realistic view that does not threaten becomes evident to those who using this technique. So you've got the whatever the triggering event is, and then you have to automatic thoughts. That's your triggering event, your thought, the event. Then you've got the cognitive distortion. Then there's a way that you have to reinterpret your beliefs, and then you have a rational response so that the outcome now is not the same as it used to be. Okay. Conclusion. In this study, we've examined the philosophical roots of cognitive behavioral therapy and effective non-pharmaceutical treatment for the mood disorders of depression, anger, and anxiety that damage the life satisfaction of very large numbers of individuals in the United States and worldwide. The bases of CBT are located in Stoic, Buddhist, Taoist, and existentialist philosophical traditions. Our focus has been on Albert Ellis and David Burns, whose writings in particular have been influential in the development of CBT. In our study of key writings of Ellis and Burns, we noticed that Ellis focused on grandiosity, in particular as being underlying factor in mood disorders, while Burns emphasized overgeneralization as being the underlying factor in mood disorders, although both do consider both factors in their extensive writings. The potential for the philosophically based insights of CBT, as well as the writings of the philosophers themselves, to assist individuals to lead lives of greater life satisfaction and happiness remains extraordinarily large. Conclusion. Hooray! Okay. So, now what we do, if you are new here, what we do is we get to rate this paper. What did you think about what happened in this paper? Luke says, interesting focus on CBT's roots, but it skipped modern analytic philosophy and behaviorism, likely major influences on CBT, which makes me highly skeptical of the use of foundations in the title. That's fine. This is what they claim to have done themselves. They are scientists. They are psychologists that were developing CBT. So in some sense, that may be just assumed for them. This is where they were drawing their inspiration from that which they did not assume. Because they're, as scientists, they are definitely looking at the analytic and behaviorist traditions, but they may have just assumed that. So yeah, it was just a word of your Wikipedia article. Yeah, so as always, get your, you can complain about it if you want. Feel free to do it. We'll discuss. But get your votes in. So these are the emote review, as you can see in chat below and in next to me. If this was a fun paper, as Ivan says, you can give it a brain dance. And if you say, and you can also give it the general vote yay, vote nay, and vote meh. So yay is a generic thumbs up, vote nay is a generic thumb down, and vote meh is in between. Yeah. Luke says I might agree with that. What's the review emote for the last one, huh? So yeah, I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if you can't see it in your chat. You need to have the better TTV emotes, but you can see it in chat below and here. Here I mean. So yeah, so brain dance is fun ideas makes a brain dance. Nog grapes for big claims that shrivel up. Nog navel gazing only for academics. So like yeah, if it's only like directed at like academic stuff, they're not talking about anything that anyone else cares about. Nog Oro, the Ouroboros for deeper ancient ideas. Nog Scream, existentialist or artistic drama. Nog Turd, all style, no substance, still poop underneath. And Nog Knife, slicing and dicing arguments. Yeah. So, Tindaris agrees with Ivan, says it was a good article, it was a little bit of fun. Viper says poop, grapes, and nay. Yeah, so, I mean, I guess that was a word of your Wikipedia article. So, basically, it was making big claims, they didn't show up, and then, in the end, they didn't really say anything at all, so that's why it was the poop and the grapes and nay. So, this is going to be very low rated for Vipers. Yeah, so, let's see, what am I going to say? It's like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm leaning towards Vipers here. Yeah, unfortunately, you have to spell it exactly, capitalization. If you don't do it, I'll fix it later, though, Luke. But you can. So it has to be exact. So with the capitalized second G. And that's, maybe I should fix that. But yeah, okay, there. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm gonna give it, I'm not hating on it just for being a summary. It didn't really say it was gonna do a whole lot more than that. So I'm gonna give it a vote meh, I think. Then what else is there to say? Does this have any fun ideas in it? I have to sort of take myself out of this because the Stoic philosophy annoys me. As I said before, I'm a cynic. I'm not a Stoic. And this sort of all the things in chat and the things that were brought up about how like Stoic philosophy just gets abused nowadays, and like how you're saying, well, hey, yeah, it's all on you. You have to change how you feel about stuff. It isn't like how the world actually is. You shouldn't be angry. It's just if you're angry, that's your problem. It's like, screw you Stoics. You should be angry. Things suck. And it's like I shouldn't just be like kowtowing to like our corporate overlords or our like government overlords or whoever it is. They're like financial companies and tech companies nowadays that have all the power. But then again, like that they wrote this out, that they have this whole paper on this stuff isn't it's like it's okay. I mean, a fancy Wikipedia article isn't the worst thing in the world either. Like having a professionally done thing is it's not terrible. So I'm going to give it, what would I say? I don't know. Ivan says, I feel like a lot of the anti-Stoicism CBT vibe is sort of an anti-individual agency. No people can control their own reactions. Yeah. I mean, I don't deny people can control their own reactions. I just don't think that telling people that they should control all their reactions is the right way to go either. Ivan says, and if you affect politics with your activism, Stoicism supports that. Yeah, I just think it cuts off, like, like I think it's a little too, bootlicking isn't the right word. It's a little too putting everything on, like, you when, like, even the Aristotelian position where there are factors in your life that are up to luck that will make, like, that it makes you happy or sad. Of course, you can do as much as you can to, like, make yourself feel better, but Aristotle, I think, has a point that if you're starving, like, there's really no opportunity for you to, like, develop your virtue, to develop your mental toughness, to actually, have the virtue to feel better and, like, to think correctly. So it's like, it just seems implausible. And I also, my cynic line is that not only is it implausible, I don't think it's the right way to live. Like, always being like, oh yeah, we support your activism. Like, I don't know what Stoic support actually amounts to. It's like, it seems rationally okay. Like, I think that's like the wrong way of viewing things. So it's like, okay, yeah, it's always like you should be angry to the exact amount rationally that should be like rationally describable. I don't know what that even means. How is like rationally describable anger? Like, how do you describe that? Like, I don't think these concepts make sense actually. So this is my problem with Stoics in general, is that you're trying to like sort of, well, everything is subservient to the rationality, but I don't think the rationality accurately describes what emotions are, or like how we feel anger or things like that. So I don't know if it doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. See, it's like, if you can affect politics with your activism, Stoicism supports that. The point is that you should be angry, and then you can go do activism. If Stoicism supports your activism after the fact, that's nice, but I think that's missing the point. That's after the fact. So let's see, what else is there? So let's see. I don't feel like, should I just give this a meh? Maybe I'll just leave it at the meh. I don't know. Because I don't think it made big claims that shriveled up. I think it made the claims it said, kind of hit the themes it wanted to. And like, all style, no substance. Like, as a Wikipedia plus article, I'm like, okay. Like, I don't think it was crap. I think some of the stuff they said was just kind of, sorry, I can see the moon right over there. That's why I keep looking that way. But like, I just don't. It's just like, I just don't feel very strong about this. Viper says, quote, you should be angry, you must not be bitter. Bitterness is like cancer, it eats upon the host. It doesn't do anything to the object of its displeasure. So use that anger, you write it, you paint it, you dance it, you march it, you vote it, you do everything about it, you talk it, never stop talking it. Maya Angelou. Yes, like, this is much, like, I think that's a much better position on this, and that is in some sense anti-stoic. The idea that you should be angry, and it doesn't tell you how much, but you should be like angry. You can't be bitter. Bitter's yeah, that's right. It's a bad problem. But like you want to use the answer, you want to write it, you want to do something with it, you want to use the anger, and I think that's a much better position than the stoic. Well, you should have your emotions subservient to the rationality. What's that have to do with the anger? Like that's sort of like not it misses the point. Okay. Yeah, this, you know what? Yeah. Did Vipers get replaced by a quote bot? That's not the first time Vipers has put that Maya Angelou quote down. I suspect when I was making a similar anti-stoic rant. But it's a good quote. So yeah. Ivan says, quote, telling people not to be bitter is not realistic. Should be your response. My grandma, I was bitter once, and my grandma was like, you can't be bitter. So I was like, she was right. I was like, bitter is no good. You have to try to avoid being bitter. Maya Angelou is right. Bitter is not great for you. It's not going to help a lot. But you should be angry at times. There's plenty of things to be angry about. Yeah. Okay, let me actually... Last 60 seconds of review. If anyone else wants to get their review in, now is the time. 60 seconds left. Get your answers in. And then we'll go find someone to raid. So, let's see. Is there anything else we need to say about this? Maybe I'll throw some other review in here. But I don't think they made big claims. Was this only for academics? I mean, I thought this was written for a general enough public. It wasn't terrible. Like, they gave an overview of things I thought were bad at times. But then again, it wasn't, like, meant to be exhaustive either. And Lisa, you'll read it, but my review would have to be delayed. You can review right now if you want to. Like, I'm not stopping you. If you are in chat now, you can review. Like, that's all it is. Like I'm not actually fussed about that. I just want the data. I don't actually, it's like, it's good if the data is correct, but I just want, like, the participation. You haven't read it? Okay, that's fine. You're interested. Well, feel free to check it out then. That's kind of the point of Philosophy Roulette. We just read stuff and we go figure out if it's worth reading or not. That's what it is. I'm pretty sure most would have to Google a lot of the terms. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, the people do know a bunch of, like, psychology and things. And so it's like people are not so unaware of this stuff. Let's see, is this going to work today?
Now that we've read the paper, the time for making cock and ball torture jokes has passed. Oh well, I guess it's time to hit the sack.
Thank you for redeeming text-to-speech, Vipers. I appreciate it. Luke says, I rated Shriveled Up Grapes because I was expecting more sophisticated analogies, parallels between CBT techniques and Stoicism and Taoism rather than some simple examples. Yeah, failed text, getting stabbed. Yeah. That's why it's just like, this is not... And that's a fair way to use the grapes. Like, they kind of overpromised, under-delivered. You know, maybe you even convinced me. Like, you know what? That, you convinced me. You're right, for that reason too. Okay, so, that's it for now.